self-employed and drinking addict. The other thing is, when I wanted to get to the point to better yourself in the case of having a job or trying something different to make more money, I went to the decision, okay, let's do self-employed. Particularly in that case, I was attacking something like doing parcel deliveries. So you get yourself a van, majority cases because you don't have that much money for the startup, so you're going for a lease. And all that process, when I was getting to this point, I needed to sort it out some paperwork. So you need to change your insurance, you need to get sorted out yourself some kind of a four wheels depending on the place what you're going to do. And I found myself some kind of a local depot when they've been doing parcel deliveries. And let's say that was something like the small, nothing like a big boys. The thing is, when you use the alcohol as a reward, so you can imagine for every step what I was doing and anything I succeed in the preparations, that was always the alcohol, right? Register yourself as a self-employed, so some kind of a look-alike business-like thing, as a solo, as a sole trader, as a single person. Now I remember that I was doing all the applications and I was drinking the beer by that time, right? So doing the bits, celebrating with a beer, um, speaking to some people, getting knowledge what I'm supposed to do step by step, and again, once the job is done, you reward yourself with the beer, the drink, anything you preferably like. But the thing is, this is the typical way how you're using the alcohol as a reward. So instead of being happy that you're doing something, on top of that, you need to have a drink. Because if you're not going to drink after that time, when you sort something out, that means it doesn't count, right? What do you mean it doesn't count? I mean, you sorted out something, you moving the step forward to the, let's say, the kind of a destination you're after. So you're closer and closer, and you're telling me that if you're not going to have a drink because of that, that means it doesn't count. Well, that was exactly my thinking. So all these preparations and everything I was doing, every time needed to be, unfortunately, a drink. I was in the time when I was trying to put myself in a position so I'm gonna get more money. But the trouble is, majority of us has some kind of a thermostat in perspective of whatever we want to do in life. And the one thing I've noticed as well, that if you're like a person who gets some kind of a minimum pay, if you double or triple your pay, you're gonna be thinking that this is like, you know dream come true, this is your heaven and stuff. But unfortunately, when you're running something like kind of a little a cell which calls a business in that perspective, that needs to have some kind of a running costs. So you can imagine, if you being addicted to alcohol, for instance, and you spend the money, you know for drinks and things, then definitely when you will come up to the point that you're doing something like kind of a business like thing, and you, let's say like I did, you resign from work, that means you kind of are becoming like your own boss, and you manage your time majority cases yourself, which means you've got more free time. And when you have more free time, you know what happens when it's too much free time. Because so far, when, let's say, I was doing full-time job, I've been restricted in some kind of hours. But when you're doing something on your own, you might end up in a position that you don't have them restrictions. And unfortunately, if you're in a full beam of drinking, uh-uh, the end is actually maybe not right away, but initially on the end, your end will be inevitable. It's gonna happen what not supposed to happen, or maybe you're gonna have a kind of a luck somewhere that you will not totally end up in a place when you are leading yourself to, but you don't actually see it, because we're definitely talking about the drinking and taking you into the places which you don't think that you're gonna get. But trust me, there is the line is so thin that before you actually know it, you might be already there. So I did my preparations, okay, and I get sorted everything that I needed, and I start doing the job, right? In terms of self-employed or sole trader, whatever you want to call it. And then unfortunately, anything I was promised did not happen. I did not make as much money as they told me. Then on top of that, you're thinking, well, I lost the job in terms of you resigned from the job. Well, luckily in the beginning it wasn't too bad because I had some money which I made based on overtime. So before I left the place, I was lucky that I got myself some extra hours, and I knew it that if you going into some kind of a business wise thing, whatever the idea of your is, I knew it that I'm gonna need some capital. I will need some money. I will need some cash. I mean, not everything might go as planned, but the trouble is, I didn't expect that I'm gonna have like half of the earnings they told me, and that was way, way less than I was bringing as a normal job. So you can see that you are using the alcohol as a reward in the terms when things are going well, but exactly you use the same alcohol in terms when things are going bad. Okay, because you try to find some way to release your stress, your kind of a little worries or anxieties, depending on the individual who you are and how you react to everything, because everyone is different. But at the end of the day, if you have a lack of money and you go in to use alcohol to solve your emotional side of yourselves, that means you will have even less money. Okay, so then I did come up to idea, maybe I can start doing some man with a van, like a solo dude who's gonna be going somewhere, and if anyone needs some kind of a fast quick cash transportation and stuff like that. So that was the whole idea. But then uh, that was putting another pressure on me right now, because you're still doing deliveries in that place when they told you that you're supposed to start your beautiful career, but nothing actually happened the way how you wanted to. Now, yeah, I needed to do that. Then on top of that, weekends been filled up right now with some kind of advertising yourself and get into the jobs. So if you come up to idea that you will have something like cash on hand, that's great, right? Well, going around the taxman, but the other thing is that will give you a chance to provide yourself, because you need to remember that if you jump in on stuff like that, you have to do your payments for the things you require to be able to pay to do what you're supposed to do. So the van needs insurance, it needs the fuel if there's any breakdown or things like that, changing tires and so on and so on. But on top of that, you have something else. You have the family, or you have a house, and everything you've been covering so far has to be covered, right? So that comes with expenses, which the natural expenses you have to cover, because if you're not gonna pay rent, for instance, or mortgage or something, you got no place to stay. If you're not gonna get food, you got nothing to eat, and so on and so on. So that was another thing was unfortunately that if you are drinking as well, then many times it's a situation that you will make some extra money, but you're gonna spend some on alcohol, uh, or even it will be the thing like on Friday, you're finishing your route, you deliver your parcels, and then you've got some clients ready for you, waiting for Saturday to show up somewhere, because maybe you're gonna transport something from place A to place B, or you're gonna do removal, because that was another idea of doing things as well, because the people been looking for some kind of a local way to transfer something from one place to the other. And the big let's say businesses, they've been charging heck of a money for startups, and you actually trying to fill up that market when you are a kind of a cheap and you're on place and it's like everything's smooth and nice. But then if you're finishing the kind of a route on Friday, but because we're talking about alcohol addiction, you need to have something on Friday because it has to be done, right? So then you're gonna be kind of a going tired on the next day, if I can call that way. So some kind of a hangover going on. You go into the place, you did not sleep enough because now you have to be somewhere very early in the morning, but you would like to drink. So this is like kind of a dual personality kicking in. I mean, you would like to be this business guy starting something huge, thinking and dreaming about God knows what's supposed to happen with you and how good this journey is supposed to be, but next, you know, to you is that other person who likes to drink, which actually try to convince itself that likes to drink. So it keeps drinking. So then it's definitely playing with a fire that way. I mean, I had few situations when I was actually hangover, and I actually had very close misses, right? When I could actually end up very bad, because imagine now if you drive in hangover and you create some situation with your, van, car, touching, hitting someone, then automatically you, majority cases, you might lose your driving license, you might lose your income. So it's just like totally madness, not even thinking straight what you're doing. All these big dreams and not actually seeing how you're creating yourself that picture of the person who goes totally wrong way, because you're not becoming anyone who try to better yourself. You're just actually becoming someone who's very much on the verge of doing something very silly, very stupid, and the end totally might be not fine. Not even taking in consideration that you don't think straight in that time when you're doing things like that. You don't think about that. Yeah, like, possibly anything going wrong. It's not in your, it's not in your script. It's not gonna be there. I mean, what do you mean? I mean, and I had very, very, very much of close misses and stuff like that. So yeah, that's one of the things which unfortunately happens as well. And then I had a twist of a kind of a maybe probably lucky wise situation where I actually, after some time, because the money was low and low and lower and lower, and actually I was in a position that I needed to start borrowing the money. So all the credit cards and everything, which was actually in disposal, I used to run, especially when I had some holidays. So not many people consider the stuff that not everyone is lucky that way. That when you are being self-employed, you actually have some kind of option of paid holiday, or being paid when you off sick and stuff like that. I know that are insurances, things like that, but the trouble is you still have to put the money down, right? So you're not gonna get anything for free. So every time when I had a holiday, I was the time when I did not actually work, so I did not make any money. I needed to cover still my payments for everything around. So then you grabbing credit cards, and of course, drinking is part of it. Every time when you apply for something and you get some money, you're always drinking, right? The drink is a reward; that has to be there. Now, then it was the case when things switched and twisted a little bit around, and I got myself to some kind of a bigger, like national big, let's say they call them parcel provider. So then the money was better just because I had a brand new van. Then I actually nicely filled all the requirements because they looking on, at the age of your vehicle. So once the money kicked in, of course, big celebration. Drink this, drink that. A little bit more money start earning, so things start clicking better. So then automatically the alcohol changed, right, for more expensive. I mean, now it's a proper celebration, right? I got more money, I can spend more, I deserve it right now. And the thing was, the hours changed very, very much, so I did have less time in perspective for myself. So you start a job very early in the morning, and then you actually finishing very late. So then again, and we have a complex of situation right now because you're drinking and you want to drink, and you are long hours. So instead of doing the proper recovery, well, when you've been coming back home, you're doing drinking, right? And then you're thinking that you drink some, you're trying to recalculate how much I can drink, so I still this, and you're drinking faster, so that means you're getting kind of a drunk faster. So, and it's just like not enough sleep, so you're constantly tired. I had even a few times the situation that I actually fall asleep behind the wheel. It's like, nodding for a few seconds and stuff like that in the highest traffic or something. So that's against some misses. And the biggie was when once I went to the depot, and it was the case of morning loading. so you have to go to the office to grab yourself a manifesto, right? So you got all the route, so you see all the parcels you're supposed to take with you. But you got your addresses, postcodes, and stuff, so we're fine with that. And then when I went to the office grabbing the paper, and that was one of the lads in there, and he was actually sorting everything and giving the bits to pieces to people. So and then he said, "Ooh, bad breath," which means actually he can actually smell me from actually yesterday action and drinking very much late and having a lot of lager at that time because during the days when I've been drinking, so the lager was going in. Because anything, let's say stronger, I was not kind of willing to do because I knew it. I would need more time to recover and probably I'm not gonna make it. But still, that was a kind of a funny excuse for my thinking. Like the beer, it's not the same. So no, 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 no. And I remember that I went back. Well, so I was continue loading anyway. So between let's say 6 and 8 before I left the depot, I had still 2 hours. You sweat yourself a little bit, so you got better. But actually, I never actually thinking. That was like kind of a stupid thinking. Like you leaving the depot just because at the depot no one noticing that you're drinking, but you actually have a fully loaded van and you going on the street. You're driving. You know, you can do some crazy stuff, or very quickly you could be pulled out by police or anyone for some checks, or and then your whole stuff is gone. It's just like all your life is actually twisted the other way around. I totally did not even think that way. It's just like this is what alcohol does with people. There's no straight thinking later. So then, quick decision later was like, okay, fair enough. I've been kind of a nearly caught, but no one come to me, to try to breathalyze me or something like that. So, and then again, the same as situation like very hard worker, good, ratios of deliveries, so very high percentage deliveries within the time it's supposed to be done. So, and so on and so on. And sometimes it is things like that, that the people at the workplaces or the places you work for, they're gonna kind of like not seeing stuff. They see the stuff, but they don't want to say nothing. It's just because the job gets done. You know, at the end of the day, the job has been done. So maybe he's drinking, but he's doing bits, right? And some other guys, which they let's say sober, they don't do as much as they do, and it's like it's a complex situation. Everything goes totally crazy, and then I had something like, okay, fair enough, that was too close. I nearly got myself out of this, and if they will terminate my contract or something, then I will have a situation that I cannot provide the bacon on the plate anymore. So that ain't gonna, that ain't gonna work. So I got scared, and then decision was simple. Okay, Monday, Friday, when I drive, I don't drink. So I stopped drinking between Monday and Friday. But yeah, there's always a cost to it, right? So if I couldn't drink between Monday and Friday, then that means the weekends are getting heavier because now you have to, whatever you accumulate within a week and you didn't drink, now you have to release it on a weekend. I actually had that kind of a crazy routine later coming up. So okay, the money was fair enough, so I didn't have to do anything weekend wise anymore because I didn't have to scrape from the floor. Just try to make the payments and everything just. So then there was a kind of a custom coming back on Friday, of course, on the way back, picking up some alcohol. Not too much because you need to, let's say, wake up Saturday morning, do the shopping, do some kind of a stuff maybe around the house and things like that. Or let's say the only way and a chance to service the van or doing something, with the garage was actually Saturday. So you have to be tip top. So sometimes maybe even there will be the Friday, like you didn't touch nothing because on Saturday I needed to load myself, go to the garage, sorted stuff. So let's say van will be back around 12 or 1 p.m. and then I was available for drinking. Okay, so the custom was simple because the place required a clean van. So Saturday was cleaning the van in the morning, do shopping as fast as you can. I was living on a flat in a flat at that time, so it was no actually much doing around. And because that wasn't like a house, so you have to cut the grass from time to time, or clean up your gutters and any things like that. So then I was like, okay, and I had a custom, and I even come up with kind of a signature sign for myself that once I parked in a parking spot, I fold the mirrors, right? When I got the folded mirrors, that means I ain't touching the van until Monday morning. Okay? So now you can imagine I have maybe a little bit Friday, okay? Then Saturday, proper drinking, like proper expensive alcohol and stuff, probably going until I don't even remember, okay? Very often waking up Sunday morning when you have the situation that you see all over yourself, plenty of alcohol, touched, not touched, prepped, or maybe some lager and things like that in a glass, not even being able to drink that. And then the Sunday routine was typical routine, like try to get yourself as clean as you can, so Monday you're fresh and ready to go for another week. And that was going like that for a very, very long time, unfortunately. So this is like, even when you start something interesting in your life, just because the alcohol is there, that alcohol will take over. That alcohol will give you the rules. That alcohol will tell you what to do, which is not the alcohol, it's just you, right? Because you are addicted to something, you know that you cannot live without it. um, at that point, everything you still want to do, okay, you still want to be square with the room, but unfortunately the alcohol is the first priority, and the rest of the life will be nicely put it around it. All that kind of a business idea, all that kind of a startup thing, and whatever we would like to call it, that sole trader, self-employed idea, went down to the sink because there was a one thing I did not take in consideration. The van is aging. The van is aging, and unfortunately, the more repair, the more repair. Because you drive more, then obviously, because of the use of the equipment, it's gonna require more repairs, more repairs, more repairs, and initially that's supposed to lead you into the idea of getting another one. But then again, that's a lease, that's a payment. I mean, if you're already on a contract, would be probably easy to start a new contract, because as long as you're doing the payments, you'll be fine. But in my case, was different, because in my case was I start having not enough money to fix the van. So then, what I did come up to idea, and this the same story was exactly in that large depot in the case of the money, because I was promised some money in the beginning, and I supposed to reach to the certain phase, being better at deliveries, and then eventually start getting more money. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. What do you know? A greedy depot boss. Well, it is like it is what it is. So the thing is, then I decided, you know what? I'm not making any more money. Every day looks the same. I mean, them jobs, which you try to do as well in the weekend, that everything was like kind of falling apart. It wasn't holding on anymore. So I come up to the story in the depot that I'm finishing the job, that I need to file for bankruptcy and stuff like that. So they let me go pretty much quickly from there. So I was okay and released on the next day. So I didn't have to, just wait until they're gonna find another driver in my place and so on and so on. I think there was in the time as well some kind of a thing that they've been dropping off some postcodes. So actually they ended up with more drivers that they needed. So probably someone jumped on my place. And then I needed, unfortunately, to break the contract on a lease payment. So I stopped actually paying because I didn't have enough money. Then I tried to look for some kind of a normal full time job. If this life story can be some kind of a stop for someone, okay, to see this, to reconsider, or maybe you are in a position that you deepen yourself more and more with alcohol addiction, then that's cool to show you how things can go very wrong, okay? And I wouldn't bet for, because in my case, everything kind of a smooth off somewhere. where that, the biggest factor on the end is just I stopped drinking, and everything looks way, way better in my life. So I'm not making the kind of a cranky decisions, I'll put it this way. But that doesn't mean that if I made up, and I end up very well on the end, it doesn't mean that's not going to be your story. So please consider that some things might go very wrong in our lives, especially when the alcohol is involved in it. And the sobriety is that a better chance. I'm not saying that your life will be easy or easier just because you don't drink, but you will have some kind of a different strengths and different values right now when you become sober, and you can deal with things way, way better. And because you're not, foggy anymore, so your thinking, your reactions, your things, of course, you're still gonna be like someone who's gonna be making mistakes. But I always look at this from perspective. In a moment when you making decision, you're always making decision as best as you can in this moment. So taking in consideration all the knowledge you have and all the possibilities you tried and anything you're trying to make as best decision ever. But if you're, as a drinker, that's not gonna be the best decision. It's gonna be always probably some decision in perspective, just to, okay, whatever, let it be, because I don't care. That's the typical you might hear from anyone who's drinking, that I don't care. Which is, I would say, which is not true. Just like they just don't want to deal with the problem anymore, because they rather continue drinking rather than sort it out the problem, because that might be a lot of energy, and instead of using that energy for sorting any problems and getting better, they rather use that energy for drinking. So yeah, that's one of the things could happen with you, could not. As I always say, everyone is different, everyone has a little bit different experiences, but the similarity could be found. If you think that this video was beneficial for you, then you know what to do. I wish you all sober evening, sober day, sober month, sober year, hopefully sober life. Take care of yourself. I'll speak to you later.